it's probably the funniest story is had no idea what to expect. We had trained a little bit here and there, but day one was 17 miles, longest I'd ever walked in my entire life that day. It was up a mountain, and we were walking up there. He almost passed out. My friend damn near had a heart attack. It was
Mhm.
rough. Um, but we get up there, and the view was just breathtaking. And I actually have a picture. There was just this singular statue of Mary overlooking like this, like peak. It was just, I mean, it was just beautiful. And that honestly repeated for the majority of the trip. Just insane, breathtaking sceneries.
Welcome to Regiment of the Cross. There is an old tradition that before a man takes great responsibility, he must take the hard road first. For centuries, men have walked the Camino de Santiago, the Camino for short, across mountains, through villages, along ancient roads, worn by saints, soldiers, and seekers. My guest today is Mr. Roman Carbajal, just 18 years old, preparing for his next chapter in life. Raised by military parents, friends of mine, about preparing to go to college and join ROTC, Roman just completed the Camino, the ancient road, with a good friend. The Camino is not just a journey across Spain, it's a journey inward. Today, we'll talk about that. We'll discover along the way what he went through. So, welcome, Roman. Can you just introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hey, thank you, John. My name is Roman Carbajal. I am 19 years old. I had just finished walking the Camino de Santiago, like John said. Both my parents are former military. I'm ready to start college here at my local Catholic university, St. Mary's. Trying to get pretty involved with them in the meantime. But
Okay, so were you 18 when you did it,
yeah, I was 18
okay?
when I did it.
So you're
Yeah.
18 when you did it. So I am right. Okay,
Yeah.
so you grew up with military parents, both mom and dad, just like my kids. Well, my wife was in the military, like your mother and myself. So our kids have a lot in common. Growing up with military parents, what was that like? Was that do you remember any of that? I mean, because your dad just retired in 21, right?
Yeah, it was pretty recent.
Yeah.
It was, I guess, like organized chaos. My mom retired when I was still relatively young. I was about
Okay.
4 or 5, but I do remember being bounced around a lot because my dad was deployed and then she would have to go, and she was in recruiting for a while. And I know my dad did some cool stuff with Soxent in Florida, but it was like I said, organized chaos. But they instilled a lot of pretty important values that I keep now. Catholicism is a big one, obviously. Time management is one that I keep, but that
That's good.
actually helped me on the Camino a lot. But that's, yeah, but it
Yeah,
was,
well, time management, never quit attitude. Not that
yeah,
civilians don't have that, but I think
it's pretty
that's
hammered
some.
in with the army.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is. And the values you're growing up. So you just said time management, never quit, arrive early, never be late,
yeah,
all those things. I mean, those are key to growing up. I wish, sometimes I've asked my kids, especially my daughters, I'm like, do you ever remember I was in the military? Because I hate being late. I hate dirty cars or whatever. But anyway, I digress. With the values you got, you learned growing up, what inspired you to take the Camino? You're 18. Most 18-year-olds that I know, when I was 18, I didn't even know what the Camino was. I learned about the Camino when I was 30, 40, when I watched the movie The Way
yeah.
with the Sheens. So what inspired you to do the Camino?
Honestly, I'm not too sure how I heard of it. I know that I think it might have been online or something, but I was in a pretty big rut, emotionally. Spiritually, I didn't really have a spiritual life. I had torn my ACL, and a couple months before that, I dislocated my elbow, so I kind of lost my identity, and I wanted a challenge, and I wanted something to mold me into someone that I was proud of before going to college, because I'm a young man, and I'm aware of my own faults, right? And I know that if I were to go to college without finding myself truly, I would have probably fallen away pretty drastically. So I sort of had the Camino on this pedestal, and it was this idea that it's a physical challenge. That means that if I could walk that, my knees back up, and I'm good to go. It's emotional. I'm on my own for the first time. It was just me and my friend, and obviously a spiritual. So it taught me how to be isolated and rely on God more than anyone else. But yeah,
That's
so I
pretty.
mean, it was kind of just like a way for me to bounce back, I suppose. That's what
Awesome.
inspired me to do it. Yeah.
When I was 18, I had none of those thoughts. Just so you're way ahead of me. Yeah, that's actually inspiring to hear that. You're way better than I was when I was 18. Definitely better than your dad because I know him.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so you for listeners that don't know, and if you're not Catholic or and you may not just be tuning in, what is the Camino?
So the Camino de Santiago started out as a pilgrimage done by the Apostle James. Its translation is the Way of Saint James. And what it was is after Pentecost, the apostles went everywhere and started to evangelize. And James had Spain, so he went out there and he tried to convert people in Spain, and he walked the way. Now there are a bunch of other routes. Fun fact: the route that I walked actually isn't the historical route that Saint James walked. But after a while, it got popularized by people living in Spain. So, anyways, after John was out there, the pagans at the time didn't want to convert. And so he went home. And when he got home, the Romans killed him and they sent his corpse back to Spain. And that's why he's buried in Santiago, which uh, Santiago de Compostela is the full name. And the translation is the compost place of St. James because that's where
Okay,
he's dead. So
Compostela. Okay, makes
but yeah,
sense.
it's a pilgrimage, and since then it's been popularized, and a lot of secular people do it as well. It's become this, I guess, sort of like vague spirituality kind of thing. It's not necessarily Catholic anymore, although its roots are still deeply rooted in Catholicism. But everyone does it.
Okay, so the Camino is the way. Like that's what they call it. There's even a movie called The Way. Did you watch that movie before
I
you went?
did, I did, and
Yeah.
it terrified my mom because
Oh, really? Okay, she
spoiler
thought.
alert: the first guy dies. So
Yeah,
she
fall off a
was,
mountain.
yeah.
Okay, and so you watched The Way. There's probably nothing like that, right? I mean, maybe the friendships, but
Honestly,
um,
surprisingly similar to it. Like,
oh,
the
really?
hardships that you face on it are kind of comical for a lot of people.
Okay,
But, um, it was surprisingly similar to the movie. The views are just as breathtaking, and the relationships that you build along the way are kinda like they stick, you know? Like, if you remember in the film, he didn't wanna be with anybody. He just wanted to do it by
right,
himself,
correct.
and these reoccurring faces just kept coming up, and that's kind of how it is in real life.
Awesome. So I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to talk about the route you took. So this route here, you started in number one, right? And you
I
said that
did.
was the most popular route, and that
Yes.
was according to this map, but it's a little bit more. It's almost 500 miles, nearly
It's about
500 miles.
Yeah, give or take. I would wager I between walking there and then walking around the places I stayed, I probably walked about 550 to 575 miles, just because of in between walks and stuff.
Okay, so you walked 18. You just finished recovering from ACL surgery, and you walked 500 miles that's quite a feat. How many miles, just to give us an idea, per day did you do?
Uh, Anywhere from 10 to I think the most we got was like 22. And the average was about 18, 16 to 18 miles on average. But the days would range. You know, some days our bodies just couldn't do it, or we wanted a rest day, so we'd go about 10 miles, 13 miles. And then other days we couldn't get a break and there was no place to stay, so we'd get about 21 miles. So
Okay, so that's what my next question is there a schedule? And say if you start from the town you started to in France, you should walk this many miles and stay at this place, or is this it's just based on availability and how many are out there, right?
it's a little bit of both. Schedules are very good. My friend and I initially did it without a schedule, and we sort of just walked until there was a place to stay. But we realized that if we kept doing that, then we wouldn't know where the places to stay were. So we had to develop this bit of an itinerary. But you could honestly get away with just walking and then finding a place to sleep. There was a woman who walked from she was Dutch. So she walked all the way from where she was from to Santiago and a lot of places along the way. I mean, obviously the Camino doesn't stretch that far. So she would just like knock on people's houses and stay there and say, "Hey, I'm walking the Camino de Santiago. I'm starting here. Can I stay here?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure. Just clean dishes or pay us."
Nice. Okay.
But
And
as far as itinerary goes, you could stick to about 17 miles a day and get done in about a month with no rest days, like 30 days. So
so you did it in how long? 500 miles?
I think in total it was 33 days, 31 days of walking and 2 days of rest.
That's amazing. What's a typical day? You get there, just say mid stride. What would be a after day
Yeah.
5 or 10? What would be a typical day for you and your buddy?
Once you get in the swing of things, it would be you wake up at anywhere between 5:30 and 6:30. Pack up. It's still dark outside. Use your red light. Put all your stuff in your pack. Make sure you have everything. Get out. Hit the road. walk till about noonish, get lunch, which is typically a sandwich, then keep walking after about an hour break and get to where you're staying. Anywhere between 3:30 and 5, depending on how hard the day was for us. And then it would be shower, relax, eat dinner, and then same thing the next morning.
Wow. And okay, speaking of eating, what did you eat? You didn't have McDonald's on the way, right? So or Chick-fil-A?
Unfortunately, no. Yeah, we stopped by a couple Burger Kings in the major cities, but they were always
Did you
closed, so we
okay.
couldn't get any.
Um,
So they didn't have breakfast. Spain doesn't have a real big breakfast culture, so we would wake up and instead of getting pancakes or eggs and bacon, we'd get like a pastry and a coffee, and that was it. That
okay.
was kind of our routine. And then we'd walk, and for lunchtime, it was always a sandwich. Maybe pizza, but it was usually just a sandwich. And then for dinner, they had everything. They had arroz con pollo, the
Mm,
Spanish version of chicken and rice.
right, right.
They had a lot of pork, which I joked with my friend. It's because they have a vendetta against the Muslims. They still eat a bunch
Yeah.
of pork,
The
but
the Mo the Moorish occupation for 800
yeah.
years. Yeah.
So there's a lot of pork in their culture. Salads, just like the usual dinner foods. Honestly, nothing
Awesome.
really too special.
Okay.
Yeah, and then, on dessert, for dessert, we'd have an ice cream if there was
Okay.
time. But,
And you
yeah.
and you were burning so many calories. Did you guys eat a lot? Did you have to, like,
No,
kill it?
it was
No?
it was so hard to find places to eat, and the portions are so small, and it's Europe, so it's pretty expensive. I mean, like, not expensive for them, but it's expensive for us because we're Americans.
Yeah.
So, we were probably eating at about, I don't know, maybe 2,000 calories a day. If that. And I'm a bigger guy, and so is he. He's taller, so we would probably need like normally day to day 2,500 to 3,000 calories. So out there, we lost a good bit of weight because of how much we were burning and stuff.
Yeah, how much weight did you lose? That was my next question.
I didn't weigh myself ocularly. I would say probably about like 10 pounds, maybe 5 to
No,
ten
when you came
pounds.
back, you looked really,
I
really
was pretty skinny, but
yeah,
like I
you
don't know. I mean, just because
yeah,
just based off looking at myself, I could have been more.
yeah. You
Um,
came back pretty really thin.
little
Not
frail.
sick thin, but I was like, "Man, you lost some
Yeah,
weight." Yeah, okay. And
yeah.
you had already lost a lot of weight after football when you got injured anyway, so you were already trimming out, so
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
so sleeping, was it a hotel, 5-star, or do you stay in hostels? How was it? How was a hostel life? I know it can be rough
Uh, I mean,
sometimes.
it honestly varied. So, you say hotel, the 2 days that we had rest days, my friend and I were able to get our own room, like 2 beds, our own shower, our own toilet, our own TV. It was awesome. I felt like I was living in luxury.
Nice.
But those are only 2 of the 33 days that
3
we were out
days.
there. So, usually the hostels are big rooms, I don't know, maybe the size of like a normal house with no
Mhm,
walls or anything and just bunk
mhm.
beds. Some places were really nice though. There was one place we stayed in, they had what was called a community dinner, and, it was a really high class place. Like, if you paid extra, they had like a sauna and stuff. So it was
Nice,
really
okay.
nice. And then other places were not as nice. One place was just like a lady's house with a bunch of bunk beds, so there was like 8 people to a small room. And there's a couple places they're called donativos, which means they run off of just donation.
Okay,
So you go there, you could put in €5 and you get a meal and a bed. Pretty cool.
not bad.
But one of those places was in an old church, and there was just mats on the ground that we slept on, just like
Oh,
yoga.
s
Yeah,
just
not
like
even
the
yoga
old
mats.
days.
Yeah,
Y
exactly. Just like the
your
day
dad would be
before.
familiar with that. That's old army right there. That was luxury, considered luxury for us.
Yeah, but I mean, it honestly it varies. And people, I mean, there are like travel itineraries out there, travel plans that you could get. You spend probably $1,000. You get your ticket and plus that, and you have your own accommodations set up for you. But usually you don't get that. If you want to do it the old way, you're gonna tough out some pretty not so nice places and have some pretty achy backs in the morning, but it's worth it.
Yeah, so giving folks an idea, you're not just walking on this barren you're walking through some ancient villages that are breathtaking, right? You're seeing peaks and valleys, mountains. Can you describe that? What was that like? Is that one of your memories is just the scenery, taking in the scenes,
Yeah,
rivers,
definitely.
ancient cities, centuries old cities?
Yeah. There was like there'd be places where for the next 5 miles, 10 miles, there'd be nothing, and then you would just see this old tower that just, I mean, what was it used for? I don't know. There's some like things on mountains, some old monasteries and churches. But the scenery was definitely. I had a joke with my friend, and I would look at him and I said, "There's no wonder why Spain is so Catholic. They had to have someone to thank for this, right? They
Yeah.
wake up in the morning, they look at that, they can't just think science, they have to think a God, right? So,
Right, right.
I might as well
That's a
think
good
the
point.
God. Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
day 1, it's probably the funniest story, is we had no idea what to expect. We had trained a little bit here and there, but day 1 was 17 miles, longest I'd ever walked in my entire life that day, and it was up a mountain, and we were walking up there. He almost passed out. My friend damn near had a heart attack. It was rough. Um, but, we get up there, and the view was just breathtaking, and I actually have a picture. There was just this singular statue of Mary overlooking, like, this, like peak. It was just, I mean, it was just beautiful. And that honestly repeated for the majority of the trip. Just insane, breathtaking sceneries. Like, even in the desert, you could look out and you could see for miles, and it's just amazing.
Right, yeah, so you said speaking of injuries and setback, uh, who got one of you guys got hurt, right? Was it
Both
did
of
you
us.
Oh, so you both so can
Yeah.
you both got injured on what miles or how far were you in when you guys got injured? I understand it was an ankle and something else, right?
Yeah, so my friend hurt his ankle, and it was pretty early on. I think it was like day 4 or 5.
Right.
He had his ankle got insanely swollen. He had sprained it, and it was like fat and red. So that was why we had to take our first rest days. I think it was 7 days in. So it was day 6 we realized his injury, and day 7 we took a rest day. It was on a Sunday, so we got to get mass and everything, which was cool. But
Okay.
it was really swollen, really fat, but just a couple of like Tylenol and a day of rest, and it was back. And he hit the trail running, like it didn't hold it back at all. I was really proud of him.
Nice.
It was really inspiring for me because about a week and a half in, my blisters popped and I got a double foot infection. Both of my feet were terribly infected. They reeked. It smelled like garbage because of all of the bacteria, and
Right.
it was so painful. Walking on wounds and stuff. It was miserable. I had fevers,
Wow, I didn't know that.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and I had to take. I mean, that was why we had to take our second rest day. I had to sleep because otherwise I would have just. I don't think I could have made it if I didn't. Those were. I mean, it was pretty scary,
So
but it was.
you were go ahead,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it was thanks to my friend and his tenacity and his ability to stick it out early on, and then his encouragement that honestly kept me going. Because I remember one day I was like, "Logan, I gotta take a cab, dude." And he looked at me and he goes, "No, you don't. Like, if you take a cab, then it's fake. We didn't do it." And I was like, "Oh, you're right."
Nice,
So I
nice.
kinda just started walking, and it was
Alright.
amazing. Yeah.
So
Really thankful to him.
you were, like, almost not even halfway through, and you guys are having all these issues. So did you guys at one point just say, "Hey, man, we're just gonna hang it up maybe next year?"
Yeah, a lot of times, actually.
Really?
Even times where we weren't injured, I was just so tired. I was like, "I wanna go home." And I think what allowed me to get through it, I mean, obviously God, but I think it was that feeling that, I had to do something, and then it would have been a failure, and I don't like that word. So I just kept pushing through. But there were a couple times where I was just like, "I wanna go home." I miss my
Oh, wow.
family, I miss my bed, I miss good food and just, like, the little things.
Yeah, but had you not made it, you coulda just I don't know, it would've been something like a sense of failure if you got back and be like, I don't know,
Yeah,
that would've been me, I guess.
yeah.
But I'm glad you stuck it out. I didn't know you ran through all those, trials and tribulations.
Yeah, it was
So
rough.
I guess that moves into the inner journey portion of so you mentioned mass a second ago, and I think your
Yeah.
dad showed me an Instagram photo where there was a bishop that's was that right? You were able to attend mass?
Uh-huh.
Or
So, we out of the 4 weeks we walked, we only got mass twice, I believe, because some Sundays there was just no churches. We would stop in a town, and of course the town would have a church because they were Spanish, but they didn't have any priests there. So,
sad.
but, the times we did get mass were amazing, but the time I think my dad's referring to with the bishop was we had gotten into Burgos, which is a very big city, and they have their own cathedral. It was either Burgos or Pamplona. I can't remember off the top of my head. Both of them have cathedrals, and we visited the cathedral, and we were kind of in shirts for confession and just someone to talk to, a priest. And there was this little old man who walked from the start of the town probably about 3 miles into the church, went up there, went in the confessional, old priest, gave us confession, and then absolved us. And as he absolved us, we walk out, and the bishop there is giving mass, which was pretty
Nice.
pretty awesome to stumble upon. And then the other mass we went to for our Sunday obligation was kind of lackluster. I mean, it was a smaller mass, but it was. I mean, I'm grateful for it, right? Otherwise, yeah. But the major mass that I remember is in Santiago. they have this gigantic Thurible. It's about 5
Yeah.
feet tall. It
Yeah.
weighs
Like
like
a
100
Volkswagen Bug.
pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's huge,
Yeah.
and they're swinging it, and it was just amazing. That
Okay.
was certainly the icing on the cake.
Um, you said you're Catholic. So did you pray the rosary along the way? Did I give you a rosary before you left or no?
No,
I
you gave
might.
me a rosary as a reward when I got
Oh,
back.
okay. Good to go.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that.
It's fine. It's good. No, I did get to pray the rosary. Not as much as I would like. I mean, we're probably gonna touch back on this more, but I didn't get as much spiritually out of it as I think I should have. But as far as the rosary goes, I prayed it. I mean, I want to say 75, 80% of the time walking.
Okay.
My friend and I would stop and we'd pray, especially when I got sick with my feet infection. That was when I had to rely on it the most. Yeah, we got to pray a lot. So many beautiful churches. I mean, breathtaking churches. You step into a church and it's just a small church in the middle of the town and it looks nicer than anything we have in America, it feels like.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Europe, Europe is known for
Yeah,
their beautiful
it's
churches, and we have these gymnasiums
modernist.
type.
Yeah,
Yeah, modernist.
yeah.
So speaking of crosses, you said you had to carry a cross of injury.
Mhm,
You said you were searching for yourself prior because you lost your identity as a football player. Because when I met you the first time, I believe I met you in San Antonio with your dad. You're just
mhm.
this ginormous dude. I'm like, holy mackerel, this guy could play college ball.
Yeah,
And then the next thing you know, you
my elbow's
during
gone.
you popped your elbow out,
Mhm.
dislocated your elbow, and then the next after you got that done, you messed up your knee. So I guess that sent you on a spiral of like your whole identity was wrapped in sports. Is that what it was? Or,
Big time. Yeah, I
okay,
mean, I don't know if I was ever gonna play college football. Definitely not Division I, just because I blossomed a little late in my life. But there was talk of my dad and I were talking about me going to UIW to play football, just
okay,
walk on and
okay,
have a blast there. But just the injuries and I guess the fact that like I said, I developed a little later, so I wasn't coordinated till about my junior year of high school. So, just setbacks. It's obviously not what God wanted for me. I see that now, but obviously at the time, I mean, I didn't even know if I had a faith, period, you know? So it was really rough for me.
okay. Well, then uh, what other cross did you carry? Any of the crosses? I know you said you were kind of you got done and you were. I think that's what you said earlier is you got done. You're like, well, that was kind of it, right? And
Yeah.
um,
I guess I don't know. I guess obviously the injuries on the Camino is a pretty big cross. The other cross, I guess, was spiritual pride, just pride in general. Like you said, I mean, I've always been a bigger guy, so I've always battled with pride in my physical appearance. And when I started to find God, I realized, especially now that I've gone through a lot that I've gone through, and God's testing me with patience and temptation, and He's put me through a lot, and I'm grateful for it. I want more, honestly, because I think I need more, but. I digress. So he put me into this or I put myself into this position where I was Catholic because I thought it was cool. The tradition stuck out to me, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm Catholic. You're not. I'm better than you. And it was big spiritual pride. And while I was walking the Camino, I carried that a lot. And I remember I was talking to this Protestant gentleman, and he had mentioned I did the sign of the cross before I ate, and he had asked if I was Christian, and I said, oh yes, I'm Catholic because I wanted to talk about it. Like I wanted to fight back against Protestantism, which yeah, it's a good thing to want to do, but I did it for the wrong reasons. And I see that now looking back on the Camino. I'm so eternally grateful that I got to do it. But it just I think I sort of jumped too far on it. I was too ahead of the gun. But I mean, I still love it, and I love that happened because now I have a deeper faith with my God,
okay.
and I'm growing. I'm maturing, so I'm happy about that.
Well, you're only 18. You're only
Yeah,
18, man.
I have time to
Mm,
go.
yeah, it took me and your dad about 50 years to figure that part out, so and I think he's 49. So,
He's
anyway.
still fighting it. Oh, he's like 58 now. He's old.
Oh, okay, he is old. Alright. So, at what moment we just talked about your spirituality. Is there a moment that when you were there, you were like, "Wow, I'm so glad I came. I'm so glad to be Catholic." Was there a moment that maybe the statue was it the
Yeah.
the 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 chapel of or the cathedral of St. James? I mean, you were there. I mean, if you think back, you were there with St. James the Apostle, the brother to John the Beloved. I mean, I went to Venice years ago, and I was TDY, temporary duty with the military, and I took the day and I took a speed train and I went to San Marco, where the evangelist is buried, and the significance of being in that facility and being where he was buried will always be with me. Not to mention it was Venice, one of the prettiest cities in
Yeah,
the world.
yeah.
But you were also there. You're
Mhm.
one of the places that everybody in Spain goes to. I mean,
Yeah,
500,000 people went last year to work on the Camino that you went on. So,
yeah, I
was there any
mean,
moments or any events that you think back, you're like, "Yep, that was the high point."
so I definitely the end of it. Like I said, the thurible and smelling the frankincense in
Mhm.
the spread throughout this gigantic cathedral. And my friend looked at me and he said, I never thought I could smell a scent that just brought me so close to God. You know, see a sight and smell a scent. And I agree, honestly. It was beautiful seeing the tomb of St. James was also very amazing. But honestly, the part that made me so grateful was all of the churches before that. You know, because obviously the cathedral was breathtaking. Every cathedral out there, I mean, mind-bogglingly beautiful. It's just insane. But the smaller churches, the ones that, you know, like in America, we drive past 100 Catholic churches a day, it feels like, right? But none of them kind of catch your eye. You have maybe Saint, is it a St. Joseph's downtown, the one that
Right.
was, made by the Germans,
Oh, yeah, down
you
in,
know.
right on the Riverwalk, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, you have that one, or you have, the Basilica here, and those are beautiful, sure, but the average church in Spain looks like that, looks better than that, and so, just seeing those, I look at it and like I said, battling with the spiritual pride, setting that aside, I was in there and I was looking at it and like I said to myself, it's I miss Christendom, you know, like that idea that at one point all of these people were so Catholic, they would put me to complete shame. You know, the idea that people would go to confession back then and the priest would say, yeah, for your penance, you have to walk the Camino. You know, it was just so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of shook me to my core, realizing what we missed out on back home, what we missed out on, what I missed out on, and kind of a hope for a better future, you know, a new Catholicism that takes the world by the reins again, like it did so
Awesome.
long
Well,
ago.
that's like I said, you're way ahead of me. So, after you just completed the Camino, you get back. I believe God put in your life a nice young lady um, that you befriended, and then I mean, there's some good graces came out of that, and then you you got a scholarship, right, to go to college. So you're
I
going to be
do.
attending college here and joining ROTC,
Mhm.
and
That's
you're
the
going to
intention,
follow in the
yes.
footsteps of your father and join the army. So, when were you called to military service? Because not every most military parents don't want their kid to join the military.
Yeah.
I know this one for
Yeah.
sure.
So at a very, very young age, I think when I was 2 years old, you know, a lot of kids wanna be, firefighters or police officers or doctors or astronauts, right? And I remember saying, "I wanna be a knight." I just wanted, because I just thought it was so cool, you know, seeing those big old looming figures standing up for something greater than themselves in this suit of armor. And my heart was crushed when I realized knights don't really exist anymore. And so I said, "What's the next best thing? Oh, I guess I'll be an infantry officer."
There you go. Almost, yeah.
Yeah, having both of my parents in the military, I guess I put it up on this pedestal. There's a quote that I always remember my dad saying that sort of brought me to, I guess, like idolizing, and for lack of a better word, idolizing the military. It's a quote that's vulgar, so I'll paraphrase it, but he said that my brother was a paratrooper, and I was like, "So what does Jason do?" And he said, "Well, Jason kicks doors down." And I was like,
Hmm.
"Wow, my dad thinks that's cool, so now I think that's cool." And
Okay.
so growing up, I was like, "I want to be that guy." You know, I I want to be something bigger than myself for something bigger than myself, and that was always the military to me. And now as I grow up, I realize that the military is no longer a very Christian institution, and I pray that maybe I could help change that. You know, it just takes a couple of good officers to make lives change, and so I hope to be one of those good officers one day.
Well, that's good. Well, I mean, for sure, we can't see the enemy all the territory. So that's good that you're going to go in there with those goals in mind. So, did you think anything from the Camino will help you in your ROTC journey?
Definitely. Perseverance, I think, is such a big, big thing. And then obviously relying on God is huge. Something that I was forced to do away, and so it should be easier to do at home, right? But
Yeah.
that perseverance, that like I don't think I could do it anymore, but I have 16 more miles in me. That sort of get back up and punch the world in the face mentality. I think could help me. I mean, not only in the military, but just for the rest of my life with fatherhood, with being a husband, and most importantly, with being a Christian. Trying to be the man that I believe that I was called to be, and make God proud any way that I can. It's hard, but I do my best, and I think that that mentality of, yeah, you fail today, but tomorrow it's another day. Get back up and get it done. It's not over till it's over.
Right, right. So I look back at my 30 years and how I didn't. I mean, lieutenant colonel. I thought, I obviously wanted to make colonel. I thought I was going to make general. Obviously, the army and God had other plans. But I look back and I'm thankful for everything I have. But if I look back, I never. And I'm glad that you're going to not compromise your religion to get promoted. Because my wife will often say, "Well, the reason you didn't get promoted is you were too Catholic," and because I never um, compromise that. I always found a way to make it to mass. And then the more rank I got, the more influence I would yield to get like a chaplain out there. Or especially when I was on division staff, I outranked a lot of the chaplains. Like, hey, we need a chaplain out here, and or lean on the chief of chaplains or whatever. So, but I always found that you're going to be far and few in between. Especially, I used to go to daily mass, and I'd be the only guy in uniform
Yeah.
on Fort Hood, Texas, with 60,000 troops. I'm like, me and this other I was a lady, a major, female major, a lieutenant colonel now probably, but we would be the only two there, and it'd be nothing but retirees. I'm like, and I was like, and this is called Fort Hood, and Fort Hood is known to be not such a great place. Death,
Yeah.
drugs, whatever. I'm like, man, this place should be full, but people are out down in town or going out to eat. I would grab instead of working out at noon or whatever, I'd go to mass was only like 20 minutes. I'd go to mass, come back, eat lunch at my desk. So you'll find it. There's especially when you're going through basic or OBC, officer basic course or ranger school. You just gotta just think back at your Camino days and say,
Yeah.
man, I made it through the Camino. This is nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
I was in Iraq and they were incoming was coming in and they made us put on all our gear, the 100, 200 pounds of gear. And it was all clear and it was like 120 degrees. And I remember it was mass and it was like a Saturday because that was our Sunday because that's the only day the
Mhm.
priest was flying. And
Yeah.
I remember sitting there, and this young captain walks up to me. He's like, "Hey, sir, you're not going to go to mass?" And he was a Jewish guy. And I was like, "No, Natty, Nathaniel, I'm not going to go." I was like, "I don't want to put on my all my gear." He's like, "Wow." He's like, Jesus carried that cross for you, and you can't even go to." And I was like, "Okay, thanks, man." This guy guilted me. This young,
Yeah.
I was like, it takes a young Jewish guy to come and guilt a Catholic guy to go to mass. So I put on all my gear and I grabbed the sergeant I knew was Catholic. I was like, "Hey, we're going." And then we went. But I look back and I was like, you know what? I'm like, I'm a leader, and people are looking at me to lead by example. And that's what they're going to look at you as their leader. Um, I always used to see he passed on, but General Odierno, who was the chief of staff of the army, when I was a young captain, and I'd go to mass on base at Fort Hood, he was always there, front row, biggest guy. He was 6'7", 6'8", humongous figure, just good person inside and out. And I just remember him always being at mass. He was a good example. So I think so having the chief of staff of the army, or he was a colonel back then, but that's inspiring. So I mean, leaders see that, young soldiers see that, and they'll see that in you. Would you walk the Camino again?
Definitely. Yeah,
Yeah,
hands down. You mentioned St. Mary's. One of the scholarships that I got there, it's called the Marinus Leadership Foundation. Thank you again for that letter of recommendation. But during my interview with them, I was talking to a Marinus brother, and he had mentioned that another Marinus school does the Camino, and he said that he was interested in doing it with St. Mary's. So, my sort of plan at the 4 years that I have at St. Mary's, putting ROTC and my degree aside, is to help spearhead this opportunity, maybe my sophomore or junior year, because I really do want to do it again. I also kind of want to put it a couple years ahead, maybe even till after college if I have to, just because, like I said, I want to marinate in my faith more. I want to learn how to turn to God and everything here at home instead of doing it abroad again and then sort of coming back and not doing it anymore. So I want to marinate and grow more, but if I can, I certainly will do it again. But before I die, I'm going to walk the Camino again.
yeah.
I,
Well,
uh, I, I tell my girlfriend now, because I do want to marry her. That's the intentions, the full intention. If God has other plans, that's up to him. But right now it's marriage. And I tell her, yeah, when we get married, we're going to walk the Camino, like whether she likes
awesome.
it or not, just because it's so good.
Yeah, I mean, my advice is do it while you're young because once
Hmm.
you get on active duty, you're not going to have any time.
Yeah.
You get a mere you get 30 days a year. and you can't use it all at once. So you get 2 weeks at Christmas, 2 weeks here, 2 weeks in the summer. So I would do it before you graduate. Definitely. That's just my advice. But so final question. You're going to raise your right hand to swear in when you become an officer. So that'd be what, 4 years from now. What do you think you for the Camino will carry with you? I mean, I think we already talked about this, but
Yeah, I mean,
just
I guess
if you
just to
can,
reiterate, yeah, it's that, I mean, it's that idea that there's no such thing as quitting. Quitting is I need to operate like I did at the community. That's just a figment of my imagination at this point. That word, that aspect, that doesn't exist. I have to persevere. I have to persevere for myself, for my family, and most importantly for my God, because I have to realize that by being in the military, my perseverance, like you said, it'll be the, I guess, sort of beacon for maybe other young Catholics out there, and they look at it, they say, oh look, Carvajal's going to mass. Hopefully they'll
right,
follow, and
right,
it's
right.
that perseverance. Just get up the next day and put your pack on and keep walking.
Yeah, especially when my I think I covered we talked about this at dinner or lunch after church one day. How do you make it through the military 30 years? And I don't know how your dad did it, but my advice, and I think we have the same thing because we both get along. We get along pretty well. But I said, get along with people. PT, physical training,
Yeah,
always be clean, never be late, always do what you're told. I mean, and then just be the guy they can count on. And I think that if you take those with you, and your dad, yeah, I'm sure your dad was the same way. He's always your dad's one of my few friends that I know I can count on for everything. He's a loyal dude, your dad, and he's true to his word, and he's very devout. And he's that's why I like hanging out with your dad, and your mom keeps him in check. So
big
they
time.
pair each other pretty well. So I don't know how they met because she's an angel and he's not. So I'm kidding.
God's good grace.
I did that for you, Greg. But no, they make quite a pair. Just like my wife and I. I mean, we're almost opposites, but we attract because she's the one that led me to where we're at now and in our spiritual journey. I would have never found the Latin Mass if it weren't for her. I'll be honest with you. I would probably I would still be in the army and whatever those issues that they made everybody do in the army just to stay in and get promoted. And he's like, "You're not doing that." And then I was eventually asked to leave the army, but I'm thankful for it. I wouldn't have my son and daughter. It would be it's just all these things that God gave me, and every time I see all these guys getting promoted that were way junior to me, and I get a little bit envious. I look back, it's like, well, I won't have my son, I won't have my daughter, I won't have this ranch, I won't have sheep.
You
So
wouldn't have
I'm
Greg. It's a
yeah, I
big
want to
one.
have Greg. I'm surprised I never met him in active duty because we shared almost the same career. I'm just amazed that I probably did run into him. I appreciate you coming on. I think it's a great. I hope we captured everything you did on the Camino. I wanted to bring you on because I think it's very inspiring. Number one, you're 18 at the time. You're 19. You're about ready to join the army. You're thinking about marriage. You're thinking about all these great goals and spirit. I was not there at 18. I took me I don't know, 35, something like that before I even got serious about because I didn't know any better. I wasn't catechized. I didn't even know what the Latin Mass was till I was almost 40. I mean,
Yeah,
so I didn't know any of that stuff. You're way ahead of all of us. So you have a gift. Hopefully you can endure the Camino of your life and persevere. And I told you about that program. There's a program for young Catholic men. I'll have to put it in the show notes, but there's a program that sponsors young Catholic men to go on the Camino. And I heard that on Hope in the Desert podcast with Father Level. He mentioned some group out of the United States um, that sponsors young men and on the 45-day. I guess it's a 45-day. I must be the long one trip. Well, you must be. It must be the starting in.
yeah.
Uh,
The Camino de Norte, the North Route,
yeah,
most
right.
likely. Yeah, that or
So
they just take their time, which is
yeah,
also beautiful. Yeah,
yeah. So I'll put that in there. But there is that organization. There's another one called Warriors to Lourdes that helps persons like your dad who are injured get to Lourdes to get sponsored, and then they put them in the bath to get healed. So maybe that's something your dad can look at. Warriors to Lourdes, sponsored by the Knights of Columbus, and they pay for everything, and it's annual. So they're going to do their next one in May, but then they open it up in September. But okay, well, I appreciate it. I know you were at school today, your first day. You had a little introduction, and appreciate you coming on the show and um, you know, look forward to make sure you spread the word and share this when I get it. Share it with your girlfriend and have all the youths.
yeah,
Get the youth vote. You
yeah.
got any final words? Or you're good.
I guess all I could say is everything that I have, everything that I've ever had, it's all thanks to God, and I do nothing but disappoint him every day, and yet he still gives me more rewards. So I hope that fountain never runneth over. Yeah,
Well,
thank you, John, so much.
yeah,
Really appreciate it.
you're way young to be worried about all those things, but I'm glad that they're on your radar because that's good that you're thinking that you'll have a good life. You keep those priorities in straight, and then you always have us. You always have the men of the St. Pius X group lounge to keep you in line if you ever need us to harass you. You know that. So,
Yeah,
well, God
but
bless and take care.
thank you. God bless.
All right.